By the time the twin moons of Orsul V dipped behind the crystalline peaks of the Heir range, the royal procession had nearly completed its ascent. Hover carriages shaped from iridescent metal glided silently across the air currents, illuminating the mountain path with soft trails of bioluminescent light. 1,000 spectators, dignitaries, elders, aristocrats, military commanders, and curious citizens, filled the terraces carved into the mountainside, waiting for the ceremonial choosing to begin. It happened once every century, an event so sacred that even the stars seemed to dim in reverence. The princess of the Aurelian Empire, scion of the oldest continuous royal line in the quadrant, would stand before the elder glass spire and select her companion of the century. A partner not for romance, but for wisdom, loyalty, and the future stability of the empire. The chosen companion gained influence, wealth, and near-immortal prestige. Almost always, the princess selected someone from the noble houses, a being of high status, brilliant lineage, or supernatural ability. Tonight, Princess Lyra Evis Solari, 21 years old and newly stepped into her ascension period, was expected to uphold the legacy of her line. And everyone expected gold and jewels. House Vran's gemstone-skinned prince shimmered like a living monolith of sapphire and emerald. House Crosso's telekinetic matriarch floated serenely above the platform, wrapped in garments woven from starlight threads. Even the crystalline architects of the Nebula Dominion had sent their heir, an entity whose body refracted light into flawless geometric patterns. Every candidate gleamed with power, brilliance, and, perhaps most importantly, political advantage. Yet Lyra's gaze kept drifting away from them. Down near the edge of the terrace, among uniformed attendants and record-keepers, stood an anomaly. Human. A man in standard planetary envoy attire, plain gray with a small insignia representing the United Terran Coalition. Soft brown hair, unremarkable posture, hands clasped patiently behind his back. His name, according to the manifest Lyra had secretly memorized, was Elias Wren. He wasn't even an official candidate, merely an assistant to the human ambassador who'd been invited to observe. Nothing about him glittered, glowed, or radiated power, which was precisely why Lyra could not stop thinking about him. The ceremony began with a ritual invocation, the air humming as the elder glass spire lit from within. Its glowing veins pulsed in synchrony with Lyra's heartbeat, a phenomenon recorded for millennia. A high priestess stepped forward. "Princess Lyra Evis Solari," she intoned, her voice echoing across the amphitheater. "The time has come. Step forth and present your choosing." Lyra inhaled slowly. Her pale gold dress fluttered in the mountain breeze, the embedded solar filaments catching moonlight and scattering it across the audience. She walked toward the center dais. Every step caused ripples of anticipation among the crowds. Nobles straightened proudly. Jewel-bodied candidates flexed subtly, angling themselves to catch the best light. Telepaths and empaths whispered silently through their networks, predicting outcomes. Lyra ignored them all. The truth had crystallized within her weeks ago. She had studied every candidate's profile, memory sphere, public record, and psychic resonance. They were brilliant, yes, but predictable. Born into glory, shaped by privilege, polished by ceremony. Allies chosen by past princesses kept the empire politically stable, but stagnant. And the empire, in Lyra's opinion, was beginning to wither beneath the weight of tradition. She wanted someone who could change her mind, someone who could challenge her, someone who understood imperfection, limits, and adaptation, not as weaknesses but as tools. And she found those qualities in a quiet human with curious eyes and a history of stubborn survival. Humans were not known for great strength or psychic gifts. They lived short lives compared to most galactic species. But they learned fast, improvised constantly, and adapted to impossible conditions. The more Lyra researched, the more fascinated she became. She had even secretly watched footage of Elias fixing a malfunctioning terraforming drone with nothing but a toolkit and patience. No panic, no dramatic flair. Just steady, grounded problem-solving. She needed that. The Empire needed that. Yet choosing him would be the most scandalous, disruptive act in centuries. Lyra placed a hand on the glowing spire. Its light surged, illuminating her from head to toe. "I have chosen," she announced. The mountain fell silent. The High Priestess nodded regally. "Then speak the name of the one you choose." Lyra's voice rang clear across the entire amphitheater. "I choose Elias Wren of Terra." Gasps rippled across the terraces. A few nobles shouted in disbelief. The Vran prince's jewel skin flickered in outrage. The Cryos matriarch lost her telekinetic composure for a fraction of a second, dropping a few inches in the air. The human ambassador choked loudly. Elias, for his part, blinked once. Then mouthed a silent "me." The High Priestess was frozen in ceremonial horror. "Princess," she began carefully, "you are aware that a companion must be chosen from among the formally offered candidates." Lyra lifted her chin. "By tradition, yes. But the law states only that the princess may choose her companion of the century. There is no legal restriction on species, class, or title. Elias Wren fulfills the requirements of sentience, adulthood, and alliance bond eligibility. Therefore, he qualifies." A wave of heated argument erupted. Telepathic voices clashed, noble courtiers protested, and half the dignitaries demanded emergency hearings. Lyra raised a hand. The Elderglass spire responded, sending a pulse of golden energy that silenced the mountain instantly. "I choose a human," she repeated, "because our empire needs perspective beyond its own reflection. We have wrapped ourselves in brilliance for centuries. Gold, jewels, psychic superiority, genetic perfection. But brilliance without humility becomes blindness. I will not lead an empire that refuses to grow. I choose someone who sees problems differently. Someone who can ground us. Someone who," she added, pausing to look directly at Elias, "reminds me that the universe is far larger than our throne." Elias swallowed hard. The High Priestess, after a long moment, bowed deeply. "Then so it shall be." The ceremony concluded in uneasy silence, but Lyra felt lighter with every step. Elias approached her cautiously once crowds began to disperse. "Princess," he said, fidgeting with his sleeves, "are you sure about this?" "I'm just a person. I don't have jewels, psychic talents, or political connections." "That's exactly why I chose you," Lyra replied. "I don't know what people will think," he admitted. "They will adapt," she said with a small smile. "Humans aren't the only ones who can." Elias hesitated. "Then what happens now?" "Now," Lyra said, gesturing toward the star-filled sky, "we learn from each other. And we reshape the future of the Empire, together. Not with tradition alone, but with courage." In the months that followed, the galaxy buzzed with the scandal. Some called it madness. Others called it genius. But as years passed, the Aurelian Empire shifted in ways once thought impossible. New alliances formed. Old prejudices softened. Innovation flourished. And the Empire, for the first time in centuries, began to grow again, not outward but inward.